Welcome back into the podcast. Excited for this guest. He comes on every year. We always have a great conversation, and we get into everything from on the field all the way up to McCaskey. And I have a feeling we're going to do it again. He is Marc Silverman. Of course, you know him better as Silvy from ESPN 1000, host of Waddle and Silvy. And he's at Waddle and Silvy on Twitter X, and he joins me now. Silvy, Bill Zimmerman, how you doing?
Hey, Bill. Always a pleasure. Wish we had a better Bears game and a better Bears season so far.
Yeah, I think the problem is being Bears fans, we have to discuss Bears seasons, and there's not too many. I mean, I put out a stat earlier today on Twitter that the last time the Bears had back-to-back winning seasons, Joe Thomas, Darrelle Revis, and Calvin Johnson were not drafted yet. And of course, those guys have had entire careers, 5 years out of the league, and have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. That's how long it has been. We got to go back to the Lovey Super Bowl years. That's the last time the Bears had back-to-back winning seasons. And certainly it doesn't look like they're going to get the front leg of it this year. Give me your reaction kind of on the first two games here, where you were going into the season and where you are now.
I'm shocked. The optimism. I guess in some regards I'm shocked, in some regards I'm not. The optimism was overflowing, and I loved it. And there was a lot of reasons and a lot of realistic reasons to be optimistic for the Bears. I felt like for the first time in a long time, the organizational flow made sense. I considered this to be the most important offseason in Bears history, really, because, you had a president who was going to look to see if he could build a new stadium. It's just a matter of where and when, not if. We had a young quarterback who we were hoping could take a giant leap forward, and I don't think that it was unrealistic to think that he could not take a giant leap forward. You had a young general manager who was rebuilding the roster, and you had a quarterback who is a for sure Hall of Famer who is leaving the division, and the division was wide open. So I think there were so many reasons to look at this season and to be optimistic. And then it just went splat right away against the Packers. Like there were many things that you could have walked away from that first game and said, okay, fine, they lost the first game, but there are things to build upon. You didn't walk away from Soldier Field in that game with any of those hopes. And I said today in our show, coming away from the Tampa game, that if you had told me there was one team, and this was whether it's a few weeks ago or whether it was in the offseason, and this was my vision in the offseason, that there was one team that had a quarterback that looked sort of helpless and a team that looked sort of hopeless, I could imagine it. And then another team that would play really, really well and look like that they were a surprise team at 2-0. I would have guessed the hopeless, hapless team was the Bucs with Baker Mayfield, with his trajectory going down, and a Bucs team that was almost trying to lose after Tom Brady, and a Bears team at 2-0 with the trajectory going up. But lo and behold, here's the Bears at 0-2. And sure enough, Baker Mayfield is outplaying Justin Fields by a mile and just like putting together one of his better games of his career against this Bears defense. And it just is, we've done this podcast here for a couple of years. I've done the show with Waddle now. We're going on 17 years in February, and we've had too much practice on shows like these where it boggles our mind, and I just wish we can start talking about some sustained success, but I don't know when that's happening.
I don't know when it is either. And it's not, and what's so frustrating, Silvy, is it's not just one thing, right? I mean, you can point, we're going to get into Getsy and we're going to get into Fields because obviously that's first and foremost, but there are so many problems between preparedness with Matt Eberflus, between, the defense on third downs. Quarterbacks are basically, they're nearly perfect with passer rating on third downs. It's Baker Mayfield and Jordan Love. And I know Love's had some good statistics, but Matt LaFleur, bravo, by the way, how good is he at his job? But if you like PFF grades, Jordan Love is way down at the bottom because he's had a lot of errant throws and stuff. This isn't like they've started off against Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. They have started off the season against Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield, and they have made them out to look like superstars. And when you have week 3 with Patrick Mahomes with a big wad of cash now in his back pocket, he's going to want to show the world that was no fluke, and not that anyone thought it was. But this Chiefs team is probably not happy with how they've played the first 2 weeks. They're going to look at this game as a get healthy game. And I am concerned that the Bears are going to be in a world of hurt on Sunday.
And I said today on the show, I'm going to write a column about it. I write a column now for Shaw Media. And my theme this week is F the football gods, because they're playing a big prank on us. We're kind of realizing that maybe we don't have the right guy, and I have been so bullish on Justin Fields these last couple of years. Who do we have lined up to play the Bears this week? Oh, it's Patrick Mahomes, the guy that the Bears should have and could have had.
Right.
I mean, timing of this is ridiculous, that just as we're talking about, did we get this wrong again with Justin Fields and the coach that drafted Justin Fields, and then a lot of input. He's on the other sideline. And, on the other sideline also is the quarterback that we could have had. And, by the way, it's the first game he's playing with a new bag of money after they renegotiated his deal. It's just blowing.
Yep.
Into there at this time. It's like, I mean, if we don't need another kick in the nuts. Like we've gotten enough. Then this game's rolling around at just the worst time possible.
Yeah, it's not one you're looking forward to. And that's what's so frustrating, because I was, so many of us had so much positivity going into the season, and I did not think the Bears were going to make the playoffs. I didn't. I thought 7-8 wins was where they were going to end up, but I thought it was going to be a lot of fun. Like, yeah, I'll kind of go back to 2012, 2013. The 2012 Bears went 10-6, but they were kind of boring. No one really believed in them at all. The 2013 Bears, the first year of Trestman, forget 2014. The first year of Trestman, they were actually worse. They went 8-8, but it was a lot of fun. We were not used to having an offense that could score 31 points like this team was doing and putting up 400 yards of offense, and the things Marc Trestman actually was able to accomplish that we forget about because the 2014 was so bad. So that was kind of what I thought this season was going to be. We were going to grow with Justin Fields. He was going to make mistakes, but we were going to have a lot of fun along the way with a lot of explosive plays, an offense that we hadn't seen in a long time. And we're just regressing back to what we saw a lot last season. I know they did a better job getting the ball to DJ Moore. Chase Claypool has been one of the worst trades in franchise history. He's not the worst. Some people want to say that. I mean, that Rick Meyer trade, to me, that's the one that always sticks out to me. He had already failed, and the Bears gave up a first-round pick. But there was so much positivity, and now to look at this offense, and, I mean, we're through 2 games, and fans, rightly so, are talking about, will Matt Eberflus get fired? Could could Luke Getsy lose his job in the middle of the season? And I don't think the Bears are going to make any bold moves like that, because they never do in season. And I've even talked about, I mean, Matt Eberflus, no one knows his contract, but I assume it was a 5-year deal. Ooh. Marc Trestman is the only coach who was fired with 2 years left on his deal in Bears history. Would they potentially, if this season collapses, Kevin Warren's the wild card here, and that's why I want to get into this eventually. Could they fire Eberflus? I mean, the fact that we were so positive on September 1st to where we are just not even 3 weeks later, it's hard to imagine that things fell apart this quickly.
Yeah. People like, and the point that you bring up, like you said about 13, I think that offense in 2013 finished second in the NFL in scoring. Yeah, I mean, and the lack of sustained success, I call them, Bill, pop-up. Like I call the successful years pop-up stores. Like the things come up in your neighborhood and you're
Yeah,
like,
those Halloween spirit stores or whatever. Yeah.
right. Or like, oh, there's a Saved by the Bell commemorative pop-up restaurant.
Right.
Each Pit from 90210 is popping up in your neighborhood for the next 2 weeks. Like those are like the Bears division wins, like the 2001 team or the 0506 sustained success, or the 18 team never to happen again. But yes, Kevin Warren is the wild card, and I mean like like, and I even feel dirty in a way playing these mental gymnastics 2 weeks in. Like this never should be happening, but it is, on what's going to happen with this coaching staff. Because, okay, if Justin continues to play like this, and then you're in a market for a quarterback, you can't possibly allow this coaching staff to get the new quarterback.
Exactly.
But if there is a team who's done it ass backwards, it's the Bears. They've done everything backwards.
Right.
They allowed the last regime as their parting gift to draft Justin, and then Nagy and Pace leave, and then the new coaching staff and new general manager come. And really, if you think about it, Eberflus was like one of the first interviews before Poles was even hired. Bill Polian interviewed Eberflus like first before he even was interviewing general manager candidates. Right. So like they were interviewing coaching candidates before they had a general manager in place. So even though it was a quote Poles hire, they were interviewing coaches. And then Poles and Eberflus get hired. And then a year later, the Bears get a new president. What else have the Bears done backwards? They bought land in Arlington Heights, and now they may double back and they may build a new stadium in Chicago. So, like, everything is always done backwards with the Bears. You hope now with the new president, when McCaskies and Ted aren't in charge, that things will be run like a big business. And he's been around. He's been with the Rams and the Vikings and the Big Ten. And now, like, if they would have to do anything, that you would do it the right way. And it would be, hopefully Poles had done enough where it would be a Warren Poles production. But there, you could drill down on the Poles stuff too, and things leave you questioning some stuff.
Yeah, Kevin Warren is the wild card, and I know we've talked about it multiple times on this podcast, how important it was to us to have a president that understood football operations. They've done that. They have him in place. And, if he needs to sit George down at the end of the year and go, look, if we're pivoting off Justin Fields, we are not keeping Matt Eberflus on this team. Ryan Poles, they'll have to make a separate decision. But that's where that needs to be. And I'm hoping that I'm hoping George says, Kevin, this is your team. You do what you think you have to do, because it's going to be critical that they stop doing things backwards. Like I've talked about it. I can't think of a regime that got fired after a rookie first round pick at quarterback, like 1 year in, unless that quarterback was a complete debacle and everyone was blown out and the new regime knew they were getting, but inheriting a quarterback to develop in year two, like it makes no sense. It's just what the Bears keep doing. Like you said, they keep doing everything backwards. You're supposed to hire the president hires the GM hires the coach. Like this is how it's supposed to work. And the Bears have done everything completely backwards. So,
right. And so you can't make the same mistake as you did with Fields. So if you are questioning Eberflus and you are making a change at quarterback and you do have these high 2 first-round picks that Poles left you in position to make a choice at quarterback, and if you pick one of these good quarterbacks, you can't let Eberflus and Getsy be their guy and then a year later do the same thing that you did with and Eberflus, where then you're already putting this quarterback under a new system in year two. It's you're setting them up for failure. So again, like we're going way down the road, but these are all things you got to keep in the back of your head, because the Bears have never gotten it right. And these are the reasons why they have never gotten it right.
Yeah. Like when, you sit there and go, I'm seeing everyone making the lists, you see, Jim Harbaugh into Cade McNown, into Rex Grossman, into Jay Cutler, into Mitch Trubisky, into Justin, like the reason it has not worked for 30 plus years is the organization. At some point, you can't sit there and say there hasn't been, it's just they picked the wrong quarterback every time. There is organizational influence. There has to be. And hopefully that's changing. So, but, before we get to the firings and everything potentially at the end of the year, hopefully that doesn't happen because hopefully things turn around. But let's talk about what's on the field here. And let's start on the offensive side of the ball. That's obviously the critical juncture here. Luke Getsy and Justin Fields. I know a lot of Bears fans like it to be black and white, that it's Luke Getsy ruining Justin Fields or it's Justin Fields not performing for Luke Getsy. We heard those arguments. I was part of those arguments with Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky all the time. But to me, this is definitely the left hand and the right hand trying to work together, and both of them are making mistakes. Luke Getsy has made some awful play calls. I mean, I think the game plan was a little better against Tampa, than it was against Green Bay. But I mean, running those screens at the goal line back to back where Levante David is just like, we couldn't believe they were doing this. The same play 2 times in a row, like that kind of stuff. But, let's just be fair. Justin Fields is leaving yards on the field. There are guys open. He has talented receivers that are getting open, and he is not seeing it. I mean, the Roschon Johnson play where he was taking the seam route and Fields held onto the ball for 5 or 6 seconds, and he was open. This was in the second quarter. He was open by 10 yards, and Fields held on the ball for 5 or 6 seconds and got sacked. Even he had DJ Moore out in the flat for 4 yards. Like there were options. And I'm wondering, we keep, drilling, and I know the coaches are drilling in the Justin Fields that you have to anticipate the guy getting open. And if you see him open, you're too late. And I wonder if that mentality has messed him up, where he sees Roschon Johnson open and goes, oh, he's too open. That door's closing. And he's trying to anticipate it, and he's not anticipating. I don't know what's so mixed up in his head, but clearly right now, Justin Fields is not the guy that we thought he could be, and it definitely seems to be in between the ears.
And again, I think you got to start there. I mean, I know, look, a lot of things are effed up right now, a lot of things, and nothing is right with this team. But if he is supposed to be, the him that everyone labeled him, H1M, if
right.
He's supposed to be the franchise guy, he's got to provide solutions.
Yep.
He's got to be better. He's got to deliver the ball. He's got to plant and throw it on time. We can't keep making excuses for him. He's a big boy. He's got to be better. It starts with him. Like if it's good enough for Mitch and Allen Robinson is standing there over the field and he's open is open. Whatever's going on, whoever screwed him up, whether it's who, we got to start there. Justin Fields hasn't played good enough, and he's got to play better. He checks all the boxes. He's got the arm. He's a smart kid. He works hard. He's got everything you would want in that lab. Something isn't computing, though, on the field. And I don't know what the hell it is. So,
yeah.
And look, we played a bite today where, again, it all filters down there from him. But I'm putting him, if I'm making what's the chart? If I'm making that chart, it starts with him and then it goes down.
Like a flow chart?
Yeah, the flow chart. It goes down then directly from him. It goes to Getsy then. Greg Olson told us a few years ago, and he coaches young players, and he played with Cam Newton, which I think is a good case study too. Former MVP, dual threat quarterback. And he told us and he warned us in the offseason. He said, when you're teaching someone to be a better pocket passer, never take away what you hang your hat on. And Justin Fields' athleticism is still what he hangs his hat on. And something's been done, whether it's, and let's not forget that these defensive coordinators have really done a good job scouting the Bears and understanding now what Justin Fields does. So that maybe some of these things have been taken away. But still, I don't think you can go from doing what he did last year to only 3 yards rushing.
Baker Mayfield can't have 5 times as many yards as Justin Fields on the ground like that. That's just not a possibility to be a thing.
Exactly. So like and there's a lot there too. And like after all that momentum in the first drive, another example is it's second and long, and then you have to force it to Velus Jones. I don't know why he was active. I don't know why he's on the 53.
Yeah, St. Brown needed to be active. It was an obvious call. They needed outside blocking in this game. It was crazy.
About it, and like when we joke today, when Velus Jones comes in, there's might as well be a siren over his head. Like, why else is he in the game? It's alert, and then it's third and long. So it's just dumb. It took all momentum away. And then look, the line have issues. Where's Tyler Scott? Where is the other tight end that they signed from Green?
Robert Tonyan.
Yeah, Tonyan. Where's Tonyan? Like, there are so many guys that I want to know where they are that they have. Darnell Mooney, before he got hurt, isn't targeted enough. There's just, whether it's Justin, whether it's Getsy, things are broken right now.
Yeah, they're broken 100%. But this is what I keep saying, and this is the point I keep pressing, and I think you were kind of alluding to it here with Justin Fields. The arguments, the supporters of Mitch Trubisky to the end, you kept hearing say, well, the offensive line wasn't good enough. Who's he got the ball to throw to? Matt Nagy's trying to change him. Like, I get that. So you've got all these reasons why Mitch is failing. But if the offensive line needs to be fantastic, and the weapons need to be fantastic, and the offensive scheme needs to be fantastic, well, then you don't have a franchise quarterback. And with Justin Fields now, we're entering this season. Last year, nobody did him any favors. We get that. The talent around him was awful. What happened to him as a rookie was awful. I get the behind the 8 ball kind of situation he's been in the last 2 years. But coming into this year, you've got, with Claypool, Mooney, and Moore, with Kmet and Tonyan, with a good, young, cheap running back room.
Yes.
The talent is there. The offensive line, it still has problems. But Darnell Wright's looked okay. Right guard has looked okay, depending on who's out there. Center, not good. Whitehair hasn't been good. A lot of penalties from Braxton Jones here. The offensive line hasn't been great. But at some point, like Joe Burrow, and he blew out his leg doing it. But Joe Burrow, as a rookie, stood behind an atrocious offensive line and looked good. Like, if you're the franchise guy, you have to overcome some deficiencies.
Yes.
And there's enough around Fields now. There are still deficiencies, and you can question Getsy. I get all that. But there's enough there that we should be seeing more. And there need to be alarm bells. And I think there are now. I think after week 1, it's only one game, even if it's the Packers. But I think a lot of Bears fans now are all in this situation of, yikes. We might be in 2019 all over again, cycling, with a quarterback that we know isn't the guy.
Bill, I covered a lot of bad Bears teams when I was a reporter. So I started in 95, and I was on the beat for Rick Meyer, which you just mentioned. So first I got Kramer, which was a couple of good years then, and then he got hurt, and then Wani was chasing it, and then he made the trade for Meyer. And at camp, I knew right away Rick Meyer could not play. He was skipping passes. It was bad. I knew right away when they drafted Cade McNown, and I was standing in Platteville, and I was watching him try to throw the football. Couldn't play. I knew right then. So the point of this is I've watched a lot of camp practices. I trust my eyes. And I know when it's just camp and when we should dismiss stuff. And I know when you kind of got to say to yourself, something's wrong here. So this is the first camp that I've gone to a lot, the most since I was a reporter. And I walked into mini camp, and I was surprised by how bad the offense looked. I filed it away. So I show up to training camp, and 7-on-7, 11-on-11, didn't look good. Next training camp practice, same stuff. So I started reporting it on the air. People were getting mad at me.
Sure.
doing this for clicks. Silvy, you're doing this for radio show. You know, no one wants this more than me. We're in the first year of the Bears contract on ESPN 1000.
Right.
Pre-game show. I'm doing halftime. I'm a lifelong Bears fan. I want them to win. We just talked about the history of being a Bears fan. We want sustained success. I wanted to show up and love this team and love the offense. I knew DJ Moore was great. Walked into the training camp practice and I knew right away that DJ Moore could play. Bill, I was watching 7-on-7s where there's no pass rush in 7-on-7s for those who don't know. Justin Fields would hold the football for 5 seconds before he would throw it in 7-on-7. That's a sack. And it would go down as the completion, and there would be some fanboys sitting in the bleachers, and they would chart it. Justin Fields went 10 of 11 in 7-on-7. But if you really knew, he would take 5 seconds to find a guy, and then the guy he would find would be a check down. That's not winning offense. And then once 11-on-11 came, and then they would have a regular offense and defense. And by the way, many of these practices, the Bears' number one offense was going against the twos. They were going against the two defense. And they weren't doing anything, Bill. And I said to myself, what's going on? And so when I said opening up this pod, I said to you, a lot of this has shocked me. But there's been some things with Justin that I wondered what the hell is going on since back to training camp. And I can't shake watching those multiple training camp practices that I watched in the end of July and all through August.
Yeah, and I talked to some of the guys on the beat and try and get a feel for what's going on because I'm stuck out in New York right now. But and that was the thing. And I think a lot of fans, they just wanted to put the blinders on and just look. It's practice. There's always going to be some positives, especially so you tweet out, Justin Fields with a beautiful 35-yard pass down the corner to DJ Moore. That's the one that gets retweeted 550 times. And that's what people think is happening nonstop. But, you're talking about that. It was even, longer with these offensive issues. But, guys I talked to said when the pads went on, the offense just completely sputtered. And I think that's when there was actually a pass rush, right? And it was Justin was actually having to do things within the body of a quote unquote game. It was alarming. And a lot of people didn't want to hear it, didn't want to believe it. I had Aaron Lemming on and we do a season preview every year with him. And we talked about it, like going into it was 10 days before the Packers game. We're like, I don't like the vibe of this team right now. That just something felt off, and it was preseason and training camp. And we're trying to say, no, it's just preseason and training camp. You're looking too much into it. But I mean, to me, when we're talking about how flat everything is and the issues everything has, we always talk about how it rots at the head. And I understand that's McCaskey, but for on the field here, it's Matt Eberflus. And this is a guy, I know that talent was lacking last year. This is a guy that's got 3 career wins here in 19 games. They've lost, 12 straight? And I said today, they've lost 12 straight. In those 12 games, they've given up 25 or more points in every loss. 25 or more in every loss. And this is a defensive coach. This is a defensive coach who got the first 2 picks in 2022 were defensive players. 3 out of the first 4 in 2023 were defensive players. You spent a lot of money on 2 linebackers. You went out and got a versatile defensive lineman with Walker. You went out and you spent money on Ngakoue. I understand the defensive line isn't where it needs to be, but Silvy, Matt Eberflus here as the CEO and the defensive-minded head coach, he is failing in both right now.
And I think one of the bad vibes that I had too is nobody practiced. Everyone thinks that Chris Jones, you just can flip a switch because Chris Jones is one of the best players in the league, and he could come out of a contract dispute and just roll out of bed and get a sack and a half. The Bears don't have Chris Jones. The Bears have a bunch of players who needed to practice. They're a bad football team working on a losing streak. The Bears needed to be on the football field practicing, and they had a bunch of guys who may have been available for week 1, but they weren't ready to play week 1. Jaquan Brisker is still showing you that he did not have a camp. Jaquan Brisker was dehydrated midway through the first quarter.
Yep.
Midway through the first quarter, he did not have a camp. and it's showing. He said what rubbed me the wrong way, and I like Jaquan Brisker. I think he's a really good player. He said they needed that punch against the Packers. Are you kidding me? Working on a 10-game losing streak, and the way they've been dominated to the Packers, they needed it. And then in game 2, Jaquan Brisker is dehydrated in the midway through the first quarter. Okay, if it's 92 degrees and in the fourth quarter and something you're not holding up because you've been on the field for 35 minutes to the Bears 25, fine. It's the first quarter, bro.
Yeah.
And it's so maddening, and I want to love my football team. Let's start there before we even talk about putting a win streak together, winning a game. But right now, they're just so maddening.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. Like you bring up that getting winded, like the Miami game in 2018, where Brock Osweiler had the huge second half because the offense wasn't getting off the field for the defense, and eventually they just were completely gassed. Like that kind of stuff happens. But you're right, and that was the thing. There's just guys that just don't look ready to play. Like Tremaine Edmonds got much better from week 1 to week 2 because Edmonds didn't play. Brisker already looked a little better once he got back out on the field. Nate Davis, and I understand Nate Davis had some really sad personal issues going on, and that kept him out for a lot of training camp. But Nate Davis, a rough week 1, and maybe his head wasn't completely into it. But again, you see, Lucas Patrick, maybe he's just bad, but Lucas Patrick, same guy. These guys that weren't playing are not coming out of the gate playing well, and it's a major problem.
Eddie didn't have a camp too, remember?
What's that?
Eddie Jackson did.
Yeah, that's another one.
And now, like, he was batting game 1, and now he's hurt in game 2.
Yeah, and it's the hits principles and all this. If they're not practicing, they're not on the field. They're tough to instill those principles. Right. So let me wrap up with this one. I appreciate all the time, Marc Silverman, Silvy, of course, with us. Better chance to be here in 2024 if it's just one of them, Justin Fields or Matt Eberflus.
I think they're tied because I think if Fields is here, Eberflus is here.
That's probably true.
So I think it's Fields. So I think, because I think that if Fields isn't here, Eberflus isn't here. So I think it's got to be then Fields. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how Eberflus survives if it's not Fields. So it's either Fields or no one.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just one of those things that you just sit there and I hope I can trust Kevin Warren to do the right thing because I can't trust George McCaskey to do the right thing.
Yeah.
If Matt Eberflus needs to go, but he's got 3 years left on his contract, so we're going to give him another year to see if he can right the ship. That's the worst possible thing. So I hope Kevin Warren is the guy to step in. George, you did this in 2021. You kept 2 guys around that you shouldn't have, and we're still feeling those repercussions here in 2023 and potentially into 2024. We have to do this the right way.
Well, Bill, go back. I mean, Emery had to keep Lovey, right? I mean, you can play this game all the way through. Pace had to hire Fox. Like there are so many dumb things that have been done because someone at the top didn't understand things. So hopefully, if things do go into the can, which I hope they don't, but if they do, someone at the top is smart enough not repeat the same mistake again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it was what was so frustrating with the Bill Polian thing, whether you respect his football knowledge or not. I mean, it was Ernie Accorsi all over again because there was no one in the organization with the ability to make these hires. Now there is. So we're going to see if things start changing for the better. Talking to guys on the beat, they starting to see things, even to like food in the press box.
Yeah.
Like there are things improving around the organization that Kevin Warren is working at one by one. So obviously we got to deal with the stuff on the field first, Kevin. So let's make sure we get that right. But he is Marc Silverman, Silvy, of course, from Waddle and Silvy on ESPN. And make sure you check out his columns in Shaw Media. Those drop every Wednesday.
Usually I think it's early Thursday morning.
Thursday. Okay. So make sure.
Yes.
Make sure you can check out those columns as well. And of course, Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. Monday to Friday every week. Silvy, thanks for so much time. That was a lot of fun, even if it was a rough conversation. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Bill. Thanks for having me.